43. Today we're going to study Mitzvah page 42b. We start with 6 lines from the bottom of the page. Ibaya lehu eved shemcharo rabol liknas, machur or eno machur. Here we talk about partial ownership. Now, few words of introduction. First and foremost, we should always remember the Talmud, the Talmudic time, the Mishnah, the Talmud, we are back 1800 years ago. Those years they have a masters and a slaves and the term and conditions different. But we can have a lot of derivative to our days. So here we have a situation of a slave that the master sold part of him. How that can be? If you remember the previous pages, we talk about dual ownership, partnership owner for 2 parties. Here, the question is, can you do in part? And why it's important? Because we can have derivative for husband-wife. Can a man married or betrothed some woman a half? A half meaning you can go both ways. Can she betrothed to more than one man, or he can betrothed to more than one woman? In this language, we talk about manner of kniya and mechira, transaction between parties. So here, the reason they do that in those days, it was a slave that was appraised by a certain amount of value. And it turns sometimes that the slave owner needs to pay fine over all kind of life expenses, business expenses, and other things. And those people, instead of paying cash, sometimes they use other alternative of payment. So here, for example, it was an ox that caused a damage, and the owner of the ox, instead of paying with his cash, he put, which called haknayat davar shelo ba'olam. He tried to make a matter of transactions of something that was not come to this world, which means the active benefit of a slave is predominant. It's a set up in advance. It's not there yet. So the question is, if you try to match it to modern days, you lease a business. You take a shopping center, for example, and you lease it. You have a lease for 10 years. While you lease it, you did a tremendous job in the property. You improve it, you make it gorgeous, you did a lot of things. 2 years later, for all kind of reasons, you want to sell it. Now you basically on a lease. So what gives you the right to sell, and how can you sell this type of business? Tosfot said, it's zchut, it's an opportunity to do. But as we said, is that something that we accepted in advance as a form of payment? It's like, soon you see, if a man said to the women, "Hitkachi chetziech," half of you betrothed to me. How is that can be? For example, if she was half maid and half free, owned by 2 slave masters. So I know that it's in those days slaves and maids, but in our days we can have a lot of applications when it's come to this sensitive issue of making transactions between parties that either did not happen yet, like pro or pre-agreement between parties, or a matter of payment that exercised by movable property that not necessarily equivalent to what need to be paid. So they said, here is a case that a slave, his master sold him as a part of paying back fine, and the question is that slave is considering machur, which means that he can be used by the other party as a form of payment, or you said that this matter of transaction is illegal, and therefore the action is not considering a valid action. So the Gemara, the Talmud here, elaborates on this predicament, on this problem. תיבאי לרבי מאיר, תיבאי לרבנן. We explained yesterday and before that, there is a core disputation between two giant important rabbis. One whose name is Rabbi Meir, and the other one is a group of rabbis that instead of using names, we call it Rabbanan, which is sages. They disputed over if a person can make a transactions over something that is not yet come to this world. Hypothetically speaking, it reminds me of people talking about baby naming while it's not 100% clear if it's a boy or girl. And it's not clear when exactly they're going to be born, right? So here, if you go by Rabbi Meir, he said, no, you cannot make a transactions of something before it happened. When we speak about palm trees, if you remember yesterday we talked about palm trees. So palm trees, so you can use a potential future because it's constantly growth. You pull out the dates, but the tree can reproduce constantly a new one. Versus when it's come to a slave, it's not because of the slave itself, Ritva and others said, but it's just a general payment, and you cannot juxtapose the two. Versus Rabbanan, Tibael Rabbanan, the sages said, a person can make this a pre-agreement. That's in Mishnah and Tractate Gittin, page 62. So, for example, an idol worshipper said to a fellow female Jewish lady, he said, you betrothed to me in the future when I complete my conversion. Here's the problem. He is not Jewish yet, okay? He did not complete the process, which we all know it's a process, right? Beside of learning, beside of circumcision, beside of ducking himself in the mikveh and accepting the yoke of Torah and mitzvot. It's a process. But he, for all kind of reasons, said to her, here's the precondition. You betrothed to me, but this will take place when I complete my conversion. So, can you go by retroactive commitment, saying that since this happened way premature, it's still retroactively effective? Or you said, no. Since the person at this point is considering quote-unquote idol worshiper or whatever is that person is, and therefore it's not ra'ui lekiddushin, it's not befitting at this point for a form of betrothal, form of marriage, and therefore you cannot go by retroactive commitment in such a manner. So as you see, it's not just a matter of slave owner or money, it can have a juxtaposition, benefits, and understanding relates to other subjects that involve with pre-nuptial or pre-agreement before the two parties are completed. And the question is, if one party or both, especially if in this case one party are not 100% legitimate party at this time, even in the future he or she will be, can the precondition works? If you remember in the past we talked about divorce. If a husband give a wife a get, a bill of divorce, and he said to her, you're traveling now from England to Australia. When you reach Australia and give it to so-and-so, 30 days from now you will be divorced. Now, for example, we know that after divorce she needs to wait 3 months to make sure she's not pregnant. So how you count the days? Do you count it from the moment he gave her, or the moment 30 days later when she approached the Bet Din in Australia and gave it? So you see here the disputation between Rabbi Meir and Rabbanan is based upon the idea of, are you going in a retroactive manner and exercise that right from the moment that declaration took place? Or you said, since the both parties are not 100% there yet, it cannot be charged at this time, but only at the time that is 100% legitimate. We explain it in the law of conversion, we explain it in the law of betrothal, we explain it in the law of slave and masters, and more. So the Gemara elaborated and said, Tiba'e le Rabbi Meir. If you go by Rabbi Meir, עד כאן לא כאמר רבי מאיר. רבי מאיר זה, אדם מקנה דבר שלא בא לעולם, אלא כגון פירות דקל דאבידי דעתו. A person can acquire or make a matter of transactions between parties if, as we use example, a palm tree. So what happened in the palm tree? Even we don't see it, but the Gemara in Yevamot 93 said that a person, that's Rabbi Meir's view, even you planting now a palm tree, you can, hypothetically speaking, sell the future dates. I came from Israel, so in Israel it's very common, those who involved in real estate knows, in Israel, people selling papers. They're just about to buy the land. It will take them to not freeze the land, but make it available in a year or 2 or 3. And then it takes them another year or 2 or 3 to build the building. But they already sell you cheap, but sell you apartments in a building that never built yet, or the estate was not totally legitimate yet. So for example, in Israel, in some location, it is legitimate to do such a thing. And it is a contract between parties. Other places we said, no, as long as you don't have an ownership, as long as you don't have all the papers in line ready for building, you cannot sell something that it's not yet yours. All right? Or you're not yet at least in the process of building it. Right? Because in the regular manner of transactions, you go to a store, you buy something, right? And you paid and you get in exchange the product. Here, you're selling a potential building that will be ready in 5 years from now, the apartment, right? So when it's come to a fruit from a palm tree, we have the assumption that most of the palm tree, you're planting them in X amount of time, it produces certain fruits. So therefore, we understand it's something that is legitimate to sell potential fruits that come out of this tree. Because we all know that that's part of the process and it will reproduce that tree. But when it's come to other manner, it's a problematic. Here, when you talk about ox, for example, that caused death to a slave, who told you that this slave is going to be damaged and die? How do you know that the future owner of that ox needs to pay a fine for that? Page 43, Dilma Mode Umifta. Maybe the owner of the ox agreed at the Beit Din before it happens, and then he's free. The Gemara says in Bava Kama 75, the moment the owner agreed, he is free from paying the fine. So if you say that since this matter of fine is not from the slave's body, the selling, it's not considered a total sale. ותיבא לרבנן, עד כאן לא כאמר רבנן אדם מקנה דבר שלא בא לעולם, אלא כגון פירות דקל, והשתמיע ליתנהו. אבל אחא הייקה אשור והייקה ההבל, which means you cannot compare, even according to Rabbanan Tosfot said, between the two, between the fruit of the palm tree and the slave, mai. So you mean to say that this chalot mechira, that this sales is an effective sales or not? So the Gemara said, Amar Rabbi Abba, Tashma. This is something that the Torah described in Leviticus 22. We know that the priest eat the truma, eat the special contribution of food that was given in the temple. Their servants, their slaves, as part of their estate, it's called kinyan kaspo, they can join them. So, for example, if the priest bought a servant or maid servant Knaanai, or a slave that was born to a family of a Kohen, it's considering a slave of him and is part of his quote-unquote estate. And therefore, all the privileges the Kohen have, he have too, meaning the food that the Kohen derived, there is a special sacred food that was used in a temple solely for the Kohanim. So the moment that person, even is a slave or maid servant, Knaanai, but they are part of the household of the Kohen, they entitled to eat from that sacred food that was served in a temple. So they said, Here, V'ilid bait ma Talmud lomar, which means the Kohen have a maid servant, and she have a baby boy. That is a slave. In a sense, he born to a maid servant that's served by the Kohen. So what do you do? Im kinyan kesef ochel yilid bait lo kol sheken. If you tell me that he's part of his estate, so obviously he can eat. So how much so if you're considering part of the extended family of the Kohen? Obviously, he can eat from all this truma, contributed food. אילו כן, הייתי אומר, מה קניין כסף שיש בו שווה כסף אוכל? Which means that the value of the slave as a manner of, for our discussion, a movable estate, a movable property of the owner, is a matter that we're considering acquisition. Acquisition, it's called in Ivrit kinyan. Kinyan meaning you have to return to the owner if he lost it, because it's part of his. So therefore, that sense, it sounds, modern days like, but the reality, that's the way it is. It's part of the estate. The same way as you count estates of, nowadays, let's say, car, you count in those days a slave that worked for a master. In those days, particularly, people sell themselves if they steal money, they need to pay back, or if they cannot make a living, etc., etc. So it was a concept of slave master. But the point is, for our discussion, logically, it's part of the Kohen estate. Av Yelid Bait, even someone who was born to a maid that served the Kohen, how much so sheyesh bo shaveh kesef ochel, that has a monetary value, and therefore it's extended family of the Kohen, and they're allowed to eat from the truma, from a special sacred food that only the Kohen allowed to eat. ומניין שאף על פי שאינו שווה כלום. There are cases, unfortunately, that slave cannot serve, cannot do anything. Such as, God forbid, you have dermatological sickness, physical sickness, bad odor, no one can be around him, he cannot do any service whatsoever for anything. Talmud lomar, yilid bait b'kol makom. As long as he is part of the Kohen household, he deserves to eat from that food, regardless, even in a circumstance that cannot serve as effective, beneficial, or monetary beneficial slave. We use this term shveh kesef. Shveh kesef meaning something that has some value, minimum value. Pick up the phone nowadays, say hello, whatever it is. Stand in a field to make sure that the birds are not eating the seeds. Whatever it is, they have some minimum value of human. If the person is so isolated, so ill, so excluded, still the Torah adds the word Yelid Bait, that as long as he's part of the extended family of the Kohen, he deserves to eat from that sacred food. ועדיין אני אומר, יליד בית בין שיש בו שווה כסף, בין שאין בו שווה כסף. The conclusion is, regardless if you have a monetary evaluation or not, אוכל קניין כסף, יש בו שווה כסף, אוכל אין בו שווה כסף, אינו אוכל. תלמוד לומר, קניין ספור וליד ביתו. מה יליד בית אף לי שאינו שווה כלום, אוכל, אף קניין כספור ושאינו שווה כלום, אוכל. So in short, makes no difference if it's a beneficiary that generate income or someone who's so sick that generate nothing. As long as, that's the reason why the Torah used two terms. One is Yelid Bait, part of the extended Bait, extended family, and another term is Kinyan Kaspo, the matter of acquisition of his estate. Because regardless if he is an income generator by being part of the estate, or considering part of the extended family because he's so ill but he cannot generate anything, still he deserves to eat from the sacred food of the truma. And if you think עבד שמכרו רבו לקנס, מכרו מאיכא עבדא דלא מזדבן לקנסה, so show me a slave that doesn't have any value, that the owner cannot use him as paying back for certain fine, איכא עבד טריפה, which means that he has, the Gemara in Chulin 42 said that if it's a person carries such a disease or such an illness, that it's a matter of time that he's going to pass. So therefore, you cannot appoint any appraisal or any monetary value in that case. So they say, so still, he, for example, God forbid, Rashi said, you have knees cut. He cut from the knees down, cut. You have something in his brain, God forbid, happened. There are light service he can do. As we said, he can pick up the phone. He can say good morning to his customers. Whatever you're considering as part of something that drives minimum benefits. God forbid, someone that has all the diseases under the sun you imagine. Physical, emotional, everything, that you cannot generate anything from him. So far, lo pashatnu, we didn't reconcile if you can sell or not sell knas of eved. So the big question left, do you have a situation of slave that worth total nothing? So the Rishonim ask a question, is that shveh kesef or kinyan kesef? Is that valuable or not? There is a book called Mishnah Lamelech. The Mishnah Lamelech asks a question about the willows. As you know, in the festival of Sukkot, we are using 4 species. We are using lulav, etrog, the myrtle, hadassim, and the willows. Now the willows, on Sukkot, you can go to a market, you pay some dollars for them. A few. When Sukkot is over, they don't have any values. It's just willows. They don't smell, they don't taste, it's nothing, it's leaves, right? Now imagine a fellow come and betroth a woman. Think about the hypothetical situation. In order to betroth a woman, you need to bring a valuable to the table. In order to betroth her, you need to put some monetary involvement. So someone betrothed a woman, and he said, here is the willows. For this value of these willows, you become my wife. So the big question is that matter of betrothal or not? If at the eve of festival of Sukkot, they carry some dollars. If all year round, it carries nothing. So Rashi said in Tractate Sukkah that davar she'en bo shveh pruta, if it's something that doesn't carry a serious monetary value, a person cannot hold ownership on that. And the big question is, we have in Sukkot the obligation, ulkachtem lachem mishelachem. You have to take for yourself the first day of Sukkot. It's something that you own. So if you have the 4 species, arava, the willows, doesn't have any monetary value, how a person fulfill the mitzvah of about a minimum of 4 species? Anyway, that's a Mishnah Lamelech. Anyway, based on this Gemara. If someone is a half a slave and half free, can he betroth someone who's total free from the half that he is free? Remember we said yesterday a case that someone owns by 2 partners and 1 partner free him. And we discussed, is that possible or not? So here we have a situation that since half of his being is a free person, can he use that half to betroth someone, a woman that is total free? So that's a discussion in Tractate Gittin, first chapter, page 7. If a person said to a woman, half of you betrothed to me, so you see example, she betrothed to him, or not, so the Gemara said, no, it's either all or nothing. So therefore, what do you do here? אם תמצא לומר בן ישראל שמע לבן ישראל כשיר חצי מקודשת כחזה כולי, הלא חזה לכולי. So he said that if she is not befitting to him in total, it's not a matter of betrothal. So they said, אם תמצא לומר בן ישראל המקדש חצי אישה, if someone said to a woman, half of you betrothed to me, אינה מקודשת, she's not considering a betrothed one. Why the שיעור בקניינו, that he did not use all of his being to betroth her. But if you have a slave that is a half free and half slave, lo shiyer bekinyano, he didn't left anything. My tashma, a meat. So we now needs to bring another source to juxtapose to this discussion. So if someone a meat, an axe of a person kill individual slave that was half a slave and half a free person. Noten chatzi knas lerabo. He needs to pay half of the value, half of the fine, to the master of the damagee, because, as we explained many times, the slave is part of the estate of his master. V'chatzi kofer leorshav. If it was a matter of murdering, so the hair deserves half of the amount, the amount. If you tell me that someone who's a half slave and a half free person, that he betrothed woman, kiddushav, lav kiddushin, that is a matter of betrothed, is not effective. Yorushin menale, how you tell me about hair that he needs to pay? So Amar Rava kshasao treifa, which means it caused damage but not killing. Uma yorshav nafshei, so that's he himself. Amar Rava shte tshubot v'lafar. Chada yorshav katane, ve'od כופר הוא, ואמר יש לקיש כופר משתלם אלא לאחר מיתה. So you have a discussion here in Tosfot. Tosfot derived the question of mamzerut. If someone have illegitimate children, so the question is how you treat him when he betrothed someone, and how you treat him in a matter of inheritance. Why? If you tell me that he is illegitimate and he ra'ui lekiddushin, he can betroth someone, so therefore, you have a heir, and the heir can inherit him. But if he's a mamzer, if he's treated as an illegitimate child, and therefore he cannot betroth someone, a regular person, so therefore he cannot have a heir, cannot have a descendants that inherited him legally. So Pri Megadim explained, for example, you have a deaf-mute person, or minor, cheresh oteh vekatan. So he said that as far as betroth, they can betroth, but they don't have, it's called chisaron b'de'ah, they don't have a full mindset, a full comprehension or understanding. So the big question is, bar kiddushin or lo bar kiddushin is something that you can take as someone who's can count as entity that can betroth someone or not. The Vilna Gaon, the great Gra, explained there's a line in Torah, Ze keli ve'anveru. This is my God, and I will praise him. So the Gemara said, Ra'ata shivcha layam. At the time of revelation, splitting the sea, the maid servant saw what Yechezkel ben Buzi didn't see. So what they said, Elokei aviv v'aromemenu. What does that mean? This is my God, and I praise him. And the God of my ancestors, I lifted him. So he said, if it's a maidservant, doesn't have the yichus, doesn't have the descendants, so it's only zekeli v'adveru. But if it's one that is already there, not a maid, elokei aviv v'aromemenu. Now, Hadar, Okim, so there's a book called Pitchei Choshen. So he said, when it's come to kofar, you do specifically for the hair, for the oshim. But imagine, nowadays, you have an accident, God forbid, and they bring the case before the judge. They couldn't find much, but the judge feel for the children. So you have a widow, and you have the children. And the judge said, okay, this is the amount of compensation I'm giving it as extraordinary payment for the hurt and the pain that caused the widow. Now, is that belong to the children or belong to her? So, based on this Gemara, it belongs to her only, because that's not a matter of Yerusha, of inheritance. This is only tashlum, it's payment. Hadar Ukim Rabba Baravuna Amora Alei V'darash. There is a line in the book of Isaiah, chapter 3, V'amachshela hazot tachat yadecha. In my book on Rashi said here the word klomar, kach itil badrasha, etc. So I explained what Rashi meant. I think that המכשלה תחת ידיך, because when you don't understand clearly the Torah, it can be a mistake. common mistake opposed. אין אדם עומד על דברי תורה אם כן נכשל בהם. So a person make a mistake and then he admitted that he was wrong. That's the way to understand the Torah properly. אף על פי שאמרו המקדש חצי אישה אינה מקודשת, even someone betrothed woman, half, it's not considered betrothed, אבל חציה שפחה וחציה בת חורין, שנתקדשה, so half made servant and half free that betrothed, קידושי הקידושין, we accepted that. מה הייתה מה? The reason, הטם שייר בקניינו, אך לא שייר בקניינו. So the big question is what left? A woman cannot take two husbands. So the same way here, a man cannot do half a slave, half a free, it's not חלק מקניין, it's not part of the acquisition. אמר רב ששת, כשם שמקדש חצי אישה אינה מקודשת, כך חציה שפחה וחציה בת חורין שנתקשה נתלושה לחילושין. ואם לחשכה אדם אמר, וזהו שפחה חרופה, זו שחציה שפחה וחצחה בת חורין המורסת לעבד עברי, that she betrothed to a Hebrew servant. עלמא בת יתרוסי, אמור לו, כלך אצל רבי ישמעאל, שהוא אומר בשפחה כנענית המורסה לעבד עברי, בשפחה כנענית בת יתרוסי, the Canaanite maid can be betrothed. We said like Chamor, that's the Gemara in Gilushin 68. So they said, Ela ma'itach lemema ma'im oreset miyuchelet. Achanam ma'im oreset miyuchelet. And that sound was mekudeshet or betrothed real. אמר רב חיסדא, חציה שפחה וחציה בת חורין שנתקדשה לראובן, ונשתחררה וחזרה ונתקדשה לשמעון ומתו שניהם. 43b. So Rav Chisda asked a question about half a maid, half free, that a fellow, let's use the name, Reuven, he betrothed her, and then she was free, and then she came back and betrothed to Shimon, and then both of them passed away with no children, so she had a Levite marriage to Levi, that's the law of Yibum, that's the brother, she's not considering a wife that have two deceased husband, because the Torah speaks, based on Mishnah Yevamot 31, about one single husband. This is Manafsha. I Kiddushin Reuven Kiddushin, Kiddushin Shimon Av Kiddushin. I Kiddushin Shimon Kiddushin, Kiddushin Reuven Av Kiddushin. You have to say that one of them, it's ineffective before, Itma. So therefore, she basically can do Yibum by the third brother, Levi. Itma, Chetzeh Shem Chavritza Bat Chorin Shem Tkasha Reuven. I see running out of time. Right. ונשתחררה וחזרה מתקשה לשמעון. רב יוסף בר חמא אמר רב נחמן פקעו קידושי ראשון. רב זרע אמר רב נחמן גמרו קידושי ראשון. אומר רב זרע כבדי דין מסתברא דכתיב לא יומתו כי לא חופשה. החופשה, if she is totally free after she betrothed, יומתו. So she and the daughter deserve that. אמר לאביי ולתנא ורבי ישמעאל דאמר שפחה כללית המורסת לעבד עברי אך אינה מדכי חופשה יומתו אלא מה יתלך לממר שהיא חופשה וחזרה ונתקדשה. הכנה מחופשה וחזרה ונתקדשה. עומר רב הונא בר קטינא אמר רבי יצחק מעשה באישה אחת שחציה שפחה וחציה בן חורין בחפות רבה ועשאה בת חורין כמן כרבי יוחנן בן ברוקה. דאמר על שניהם הוא אומר ויברך אותם אלוקים ויאמר פרו ורבו ומילאו את הארץ. אמר רב נחמן בר יצחק לא מנהג הפר נהגו בה. Which means because she's not designated to one person, so they force the owner to release her because otherwise she was like almost like a prostitute. So therefore, when the moment they release her, their hope is that she get married and then the whole matter will be solved. That's basically the Rambam in Chot Avadim chapter 9, Halacha 6. המוכר עבדו לעובדי כוכבים או לחוץ על הארץ, which means if someone sell his servant to idolaters or someone who live overseas, יצא בן חורין. That's knas chachamim. That's a special fine the sages imposed. Later the Gemara explain why. תנו רבנן, מוכר עבדו לעובדי כוכבים יצא לחירות. וצריך גם כשחרור מהרבו ראשון. He need a letter of annulation, which means letter of release from his master. אומר רבי שמעון גמליאל באמת דברים אומרים שלא כתב עליו עונו. That he didn't write a star, he didn't write a letter that he sell it to idolater. אבל כתב עליו עונו, זהו שחרורו. מה עונו? אמר רב ששת כתב לי, החלך, שתברח ממנו when you run away from the idolater, אין לי עסק בך, I'm not involved anymore with you. So it means the Rashba said that that's basically a matter of self-acquisition of freedom. תנו רבנן, לבא עליו מן העובד כוכבים. כיוון שעשה לו עובד כוכבים נימוסו, he did something that show ownership, יצא לחירות, he's free. מה נימוסו? מערבון ברידה נשקי. So that's the special seal that they put on the slave in that time. That he owns it. מתיר רב ששת האריסים והחכירות והאריסי בתיאבון ועובדי כוכבים שמשכן סדור לישראל אבל מי שעשה לו נימוסו פטורה מן המעשר. ויסדתך נשקי, סדר בין נשקי, אלא רב ששת זמן. קשה זמן הזמן לא קשה. דמת הזימנה עד לא מת הזימנה. אלא לגבי עבד דמת הזימנה צריכה למימר. אלא ידוידית לא מת הזימנה ולא קשה. לגופה לפיירה. והיא באי תימה בשלבה בנת משכנו ולא משכנו.